Good Monday evening. I'm Lawrence Sam, and this is Money for the Win. It is February 24th, and I have the great pleasure of being able to talk to you a little bit about my Money for the Win journey. The fact of the matter is, I hope I don't come across on here as if I have all the answers. The fact is I'm just sharing my opinion, and I'm sharing a little bit of my experience. So I'm 52 years old, and over the course of the past 30 plus years, I have had some successes and I've had some failures, and I'm going to share with you some of those things, and hopefully it benefits you. Okay, you know what? Growing up, most of us were taught two things about money: how to spend it and how to work for it, usually in that order. What most of us really weren't taught is how to make money work for us. So over the course of my life, I learned something very important, that money's a game. You see, there are rules, there are winners, and there are losers. And I want you to money for the win. Okay, before we get started, I want to start with an attitude of gratitude. And what I want to express gratitude about right now are ellipses. Ellipses are those, dot, dot, dot. Sometimes you'll see when people are texting and they're writing a reply, or it's just kind of representative of a pause when we're saying something. So the reason I'm thankful for ellipses is because it kind of, again, as this cognitive behavioral therapist, I'm really focusing when it comes to success on our mindset. So what ellipses represent is that kind of potential. So for example, I can say right now, I'm not a millionaire, period. And then that's the end of the conversation. But if I say, I'm not a millionaire, dot, 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 yet. That's a different thing. It's a different mindset. It shows that I'm focused on change, that I can bring it about. Anyway, there's a lot of different things that you can put that ellipses on, okay? So that's what I'm thankful for. I just want to share that this series, Money for the Win, and the YouTube series, videos, they are meant as a series. So if you're new to the channel or you're a veteran subscriber and viewer, I do recommend that you go back and re-watch videos, that you kind of go to each one of them and look for content that can kind of come together to help you achieve your financial success, whatever those goals are, okay? So today is part one, and that is my Money for the Win journey. So again, really important. It's not a matter of I've never made any mistakes. I've made a lot, and really what I want to kind of share is the opportunity to get to know me a little bit better, and for some of the lessons and mistakes that by sharing with you, you can benefit. Again, because I think financial literacy, the lack of financial education, impacts us all on it, and I think to our detriment. Okay, so the fact is, I was speaking to a very good friend of mine last week, and we were talking a little bit about the need for financial literacy, financial education. And he goes, I wish when I was younger, someone had spoken to me, that someone like you, Lawrence, not only just kind of shared the information, but really spoke into my life, was like persistent about it. And he said, I would have listened. So that's what these videos are for. I don't know if I can ever convince anybody. I just want to share. I want to share my experiences. I want to share a little bit better. And what's going to be a really important lesson is not just the information, but the challenge of consistency. Warren Buffett says that there's two rules when it comes to money. Rule number one, never lose money. Rule number two, never forget rule number one. And I think that rule number one is probably where most of us fall short. I think we don't value our income. We get into debt, we spend. So those are all different ways of losing money. But as I share, you're going to see that I've had a lot and so this is also true of people who say have great incomes, but they really don't build wealth, or they really aren't able to hold on to it. I heard a story once about a man who was looked at as being very successful doctor, six-figure income, wearing a nice watch, driving a nice car, living in a nice house. And then when he met with his financial planner, the financial planner found out that the house, it was $1 million home that he still owed $950,000 on. The car was leased, and the man had 2 divorces for which he paid alimony. So even though he had this great income, his lifestyle, he said, the saying was, he lived his life like he drove his car in the red, right? So sometimes different folks from different backgrounds will come across this video, and whether you have a great income or not, whether you're saving or not, that there might be some value that you can gain out of this. At least that's my hope, okay? And if I can help anyone, then I feel satisfied. That's the purpose of this. Okay, so let me, this is going to be part 1. I'm not sure if we're going to go into 2 parts or 3. Depends on how far I get, okay? So let me see, starting out, well, as a kid, I was pretty good at playing Monopoly. All right, I tended to win, or I tended to do, not kid, but like, 12 years old or whatever, a little younger, a little older. I was pretty good at Monopoly. I played the game, I won, I got real estate, etc. But the funny thing is only as an adult did I understand the missed opportunity I had for understanding how Monopoly relates a lot to real life. In Monopoly, you play the game by rolling dice and going around, right? You want to pass go to collect $200. And it wasn't until later in life I realized that represents our work life. I don't know if you knew this, right? Going in circles, that's kind of like month after month. And then $200 represents our salary. But what's the goal of Monopoly? Is the goal of Monopoly just to go in circles as much as possible? No, the goal of Monopoly is to acquire property and to build this source of income from other players that then you crush them, right? So in personal finance doesn't have to crush other people, but this idea of financial independence, of financial freedom. So if you've ever watched a video before about how money works, you know that when we talk about these 4 areas of money, income, expenses, assets, and liabilities or debt. Assets generate income. And in Monopoly, you're generating income by going in circles, but the goal is to actually acquire assets, in this case real estate, and then develop that real estate through houses and hotels and win. So the same kind of true in real life. Okay, but anyway, the point there was, here was this great opportunity. No one shared, I didn't realize it, and no one shared it with me, and yet I played this game throughout childhood. And then there's a weird thing, okay? I've only shared this a couple times, very few people, but this is weird. I'm gonna share it to everybody, at least everybody who watches this video. The kind of weird thing I had about money growing up was I valued it somehow, some way, the actual cash itself. When I would get money, I used to wash it in the sink with soap and water, and then I would iron it. This is the weirdest thing, right? But I don't know, maybe in my kid's mind, this was my way of kind of knowing that this could get me the comics or the candy or the ice cream or whatever it is I wanted. I recognized the value. So I was never a very materialistic, demanding type of kid, but I did see that. Okay, so that was my childhood, my teens. I had a couple jobs. I delivered newspaper, which I hated, so I think that lasted, it didn't last very long. And then my first job this summer, when I was 16 years old, I worked at a Taco Bell. And then the summer after that, I worked at a Thrifty scooping ice cream. Again, I have no idea what I did with the money. I didn't have any kind of financial principle. So it wasn't until the age of 18, it was 1986, that I joined the Marine Corps. So here I am in the Marine Corps, and I'm earning income on a regular basis. I think it's about $1,000 a month back then. But anyway, so it was while I was in the Marines that I read my very first personal finance book. As a matter of fact, this is it. This is the actual book that I received back in 1986. Now, it's called, where is it? There it is. It's called Personal Finance. Now, what it goes through, I mean, if you look at this, hold on. So look at the text. It's very dry. There's some photographs of checks. There's a photograph of a budget, pay stubs. It's a very dry. You see that? Look at all that. And so as I was reviewing it today, I just go, wow, of course, how is an 18-year-old? So here's an example of the budget information. There's no illustrations, no humor. Very dry, just numbers and black and white text. And it wasn't a seminar. They just, but it's a required reading when you join the Marine Corps. So some of the most important things I did remember is it talks a little bit. One of the issues I remember is keeping in mind that these are men and women from all over the country, from different backgrounds, and maybe just like me, the first time earning income. A lot of people didn't know how checks worked. And so they thought as long as they had a check in their checkbook, they could write for money. So you had Marines getting into debt, buying expensive cars, drinking a lot, just kind of like these financial choices that ended up being kind of self-destructive. So the Marine Corps had put out this personal finance book to try to, reduce those things from happening. Okay, so what was covered in this book is budgets, financial organizations, how banks work, direct deposit, credit cards, our financial statement. That's it, those 4 areas. Now, I did read this, I did do it. I don't know that any of it stuck, if any of it meant anything. I think it helped me read my pay statement. So, but nevertheless, I ended up buying I contributed to my GI Bill, which at the time, this is in '86, was a requirement if you wanted to get some help for college. You had to contribute money. The GI Bill since then has changed a couple times. It was different before, like during the Vietnam era, and then it changed again during the Gulf War, right? So it wasn't until I was 20 years old and I was on embassy duty that I came across this book. Now, this is the actual book. So what happened was I was working for the embassies and I found a book on a diplomat's table. And the title of the book really intrigued me. Now, I don't recommend this book, okay? So, first of all, it's really old. Second, the author makes some really outlandish claims. And he, at some point, went to prison, and he's currently deceased now. But anyway, here's the book. I'm not going to withhold it from you. Wealth Without Risk by Charles Givens. So I think there's still value when you read this book because there's a lot of concepts. And when I talk about the way we think about money, that's what's really important, is conceptualizing it, okay? So the book I do recommend nowadays is called The Automatic Millionaire. I have it back here in my library, but it's called The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach. Somebody who just really wants to take control of their finances and get ahead. It's very simple, easy read, paperback. You can read it in 2 hours. But anyway, this book, Wealth Without Risks, opened up this whole world for me that I had no idea existed, just about how to invest and how to get ahead. And it really changed my life. So when I got out of the Marine Corps in 1992, I was 24 years old and I had about $100,000 in investments in today's dollars, okay? That's pretty crazy. I had no debt. I just getting out of the military, and I had this ton of money. As a matter of fact, I didn't know a lot of adults, when I got out of the military, and most of them, I asked them, what should I do? And they didn't have any idea. No, I didn't know any other rich people, so they couldn't give any good advice. So in '92 is when I started college. So I did my undergrad at UC Berkeley and I did my postgrad at Cal State Long Beach. And so while I was at Berkeley, the GI Bill was contributing 9 months out of my school year. I would get $400 a month. Okay, that was my GI Bill. I worked part-time and I withdrew money from my investments as I needed it. At that time, I really wasn't reading financial books. I wasn't really trading or buying more stock. I was, withdrawing. So it really wasn't on my mind. I think I had lost, during those last 4 years in the Marine Corps, I was reading more financial books. I was reading magazines. I was actively trading stocks. I forgot about that. I was trading stocks and I did not do very well. As a matter of fact, when I got out of the Marines, I traded for the first year and I think I ended up just losing my individual stock portfolio. So I stopped doing it. And then when I was at Berkeley, it wasn't a focus. I was just focused on my schoolwork and my girlfriend and my job, right? But here's the great thing. When I got out of college in '95, my investments were worth the same amount they were when I went in '92. Okay? So yeah, So even though I wasn't focused on growing it, it grew on its own. And so that was pretty cool. Okay, so that was undergrad, but unfortunately, and there was a year between undergrad and graduate school. But unfortunately, after I graduated college, in the Marines and in Berkeley, I was a real focused guy. I just had these goals, and I was after it, and I was just burning the candle at both ends. But after I graduated college, I just felt kind of lost. I didn't know what to do with the rest of my life. I really was kind of unmoored. And I started it was a confusing time for me. I'd say even though I went to grad school, I'd say for the next 4 or 5 years, from 95 to 2001. 95 to 2001, that's 6 years. Is that right? Wow. Okay. Okay, sorry about that, but yeah. Okay, so yeah. So let's say from 95 to 2001 was kind of a confusing time. Even though I was going to grad school, I was having trouble keeping a job. I just was really unsatisfied, really unhappy. Started taking a lot of investment risks. I was just all over the place. And I made a lot of mistakes. I was just really doing irresponsible stuff. I was acting on greed and just this kind of lack of stability, a lack of a foundation. I cashed out my IRA, which I had started building when I was in the Marines. I started taking really risky investments, putting money into small businesses that were really risky. I took out student loans. I started taking out cash advances. I started trading options. I mean, just a lot of risky stuff. And even though I went to grad school, and then I took a sabbatical, leave of absence. Grad school would have been only 2 years, but it ended up taking me 3 years because of that leave. And then even after getting my master's in '99, still another 2 years. I just couldn't. I wasn't satisfied with the jobs I had. I was just all over the place. Even though this was the same time, '99, when I got my securities license, I got my tax license, I got my insurance license, and first started my efforts as an entrepreneur, focusing on trying to help people understand money better. Kind of crashed and burned on that. Just a lot of, okay, anyway, you get the point. I was just really all over the place, and it wasn't until 2001 that I got wiped out. That was my first wipeout. There's one or two more to follow, but had a bankruptcy, wiped out the cash advances, still had the student loan, and that is where I'm going to end for today. Okay, so yeah, that was 2001. Okay, so I'm still here. You see, there's a certain level of success I'm having right now. So the story gets better. Okay, but that's 2001. That's 19 years ago, right? Wow. So anyway, so I hope that some of this stuff, the kind of ups and downs, what was winning, what was losing for me, kind of helps you understand where you are or what's going on for you. I want to ask you, consider subscribing to my channel and activating your notifications. Come back over and over and watch these videos. I think what I'm having to share might be a new idea, might be new concepts. And for you to be able to apply them in your lives sometimes takes that repetition. So they say repetition is the mother of learning. The way we think is based mostly on our subconscious. And the way things get deep into our subconscious is through repetition. All right, please like and share. And if you can, watch each video for 10 minutes or more. All right, so today I shared a little bit, part one of my Money for the Win journey. Started out pretty strong, ended on a real low note. So come back next week for part two of my Money for the Win journey. Things will get better before they get worse and then get better again, okay? So thank you so much. And as always, I encourage you to be rich and enrich others.